time is now 6:30 p.m. and I will call the meeting to order. Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to
the flag of the United States of America and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please. Present.
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 Here.
Here.
Here. Present.
And I will entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move we approve the agenda as presented.
Second.
I'm gonna wait for my turn, don't I? Or do I move? Okay, well, I move to add the following items to the agenda. Agenda number H, reconsideration of the election of Mayor Pro Tem to be voted on by the full board. And item I, a resolution number 2018-24, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Lochbuie setting the 2019 mill levies, I believe, for Adams County.
I have a motion and an amended motion. Do I have a second on the amended motion?
Second.
I have a second on the amended motion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? And the ayes have it. The agenda is approved with the 2 additional items. Audience business, there was none. Consent agenda. For the benefit of the audience, the items on the consent agenda are the payment approval report in the amount of $294,951.57 and the December 4th, 2018 minutes. Do I have a motion?
Consent agenda is presented.
I second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Jeffrey.
Yes.
Trustee Morris.
Yes.
Yes.
Mayor Lofgren.
Yes.
Trustee Strong.
Yes.
Trustee Jordan.
Yes.
Trustee Thomas.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up are the swearing-in ceremonies for our 2 new police officers, David Lawley and Sean Johnson. If you 2 could approach. And come on up here and face out at our audience here. Then we can do some pictures. Stand over here. Okay, repeat after me, please. I state your name.
I, Sean Johnson,
Do solemnly swear and affirm that I will support,
do solemnly swear and affirm that I will support,
protect, and defend the Constitution
protect, and defend the Constitution
and government of the United States of America
and government of the United States of America,
and the Constitution and government of the state of Colorado
the Constitution and government of the state of Colorado,
against all enemies, whether domestic or foreign,
against all enemies, whether domestic or foreign,
and that I will bear true faith,
and I will bear true faith,
allegiance, and loyalty to the same.
allegiance, and loyalty to the same.
Any ordinance, resolution, or law,
Any ordinance, resolution, or law,
and that I will faithfully perform the duties
and I will faithfully perform the duties
of the office of police officer
of the office of police officer,
to which I have been duly appointed.
to which I have been duly appointed.
So help me God.
So help me God.
And you 2 are now officially members of Arda Police.
Again? Congratulations. Congratulations. Oh. The bodyguards are.
Okay, so we will move on to our action and discussion items. And we will do the financial update. Mr. Green isn't here tonight. Did you have anything on that, Steve? Okay, and I think at least Mr. Strack had some questions that you might be able to address, so. Go ahead, yeah.
I was unable to find, the line item for any, revenues or expenditures for the Fall Fest?
We're gonna have that on your bill pay for your January meeting.
All right,
We have a summary of that in terms of
okay, thank,
donations, expenditures, and, balance sheet.
all right, thank you.
Anyone else have any questions that Mr. Stamey could attempt to answer? Okay, seeing none, we will defer our financial report until the next meeting. Next on the agenda is Resolution 2018-26 concerning the subdivision improvement agreement. And I will throw it to you immediately.
We have some security in place during the warranty period so that if we have any trouble with the public improvements, we can call on that security.
I will allow Mr. Spillane to come up and speak a little bit on this if you would like.
Mr. Mayor, members of the board, John Spillane.
Corporation, 8301 East Prentice Avenue, Inglewood, Colorado. If you're just here to answer any questions that the board might have on the SIA.
Questions for Mr. Hahn or Mr. Spillane? Trustee Counterman. Yeah, go ahead.
In my notes here.
I'll hop back to you, Trustee Morris.
Can you comment on your time frame? I know you're wanting to go as fast as you can, but can you elaborate just briefly for us?
Yeah, I think the plan is right now, Century Communities, I believe, is the proposed builder, and we expect to close with our buyer, who is the CW Lock Buoy, who's referenced in the SIA, next month. And I believe that they would be closing a portion of those lots to Century within that same time frame. And then I think that Century would be commencing development as soon as possible. So I think that they'd be looking to deliver homes early part of next year. When I say early, probably April, May.
Mr. Counterman?
I have a question about Article C on the street improvements.
Okay.
I don't see anything in that section there. It states grading, road base, et cetera, et cetera. I don't see anything in there about sidewalks.
There are sidewalks that are provided in both the construction drawings. Well, they're on the construction drawings, and that's part of what's being approved together with the subdivision improvement agreement by the town. So the sidewalks are part of the construction drawings, but they're also referenced in the exhibit that shows the improvements that are going to be done. The sidewalks are on there.
I'm talking about sidewalks in front of the houses,
Yes,
not in the parks and open space.
no, all of the sidewalks are referenced in that exhibit.
That's all I had.
Trustee Strap?
I think this is great. I wish the economy was better for you. It's gonna be slow this coming year, I'm afraid, a little bit, but hopefully not. So the things I have are probably not so much for you as maybe for the town attorney and some of the wording, if I could. On Exhibit D, number 3, it talks about the interstate interchange fee, and it says it's on land located south of County Road 4 with residential use. So I was kind of wondering, does that exclude Blue Lakes and Altamira?
No, there's a different fee for land
south of County Road 4 or north of County Road 4. So there's a
Okay.
different fee.
All right, well, that was easy. Then I hadn't seen the public safety fee before.
That's typical, that's in the town's fee resolution.
Okay, and then as we go right down to number 1 and 2, it says that the school, the shortfall contribution will be paid to the school.
This is Adams County, Adams School District, it's not the Weld.
Okay, so that's why it's the J instead of the E, okay. And then the only other one on the back was, the what a fee. And so I was wondering at, what number are we? To that 200 or 2,500?
I'll have to look to get you a count on that, but
Okay.
between Steve Jeffers and Chris Sanchez and us, we've kind of been monitoring that with a total. I don't know
Thank you.
off the top of my head.
I don't think I'll be able to say anything more than yes or no the rest of the night, so thank you.
Trustee Doherty?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions, and I already forgot one of them. That's not good. So in 214, the off-site street improvements, it talks about the 1.35 for improvements on Weld County Road 2, and it notes that it requires payment of that amount based on the first building permit within the plat. Maybe I'm just remembering the numbers wrong, but I thought we had it split where the first building permit for one portion was a certain amount, and then the other was a different amount, and I thought the total was 1.35? Am I remembering that wrong? That's right. Okay, thank you. And then the second question that I have was so we're listing in kind of the agreement the fee schedule for cap fees and so forth. So if half these properties aren't developed for, and I definitely understand this is not the hope, but if they're not developed for 10 years, do we have, I guess, is this agreement setting in stone that fee schedule that we're gonna be locked into, or is this just kind of included as a general for now?
It's really much more designed to be informative, especially to those fees that can be legislatively changed in the future. It doesn't lock us in, it just tells you what they are today, but recognize.
Okay, that's what I figured. I thought I would double check on that.
Yeah, and I think the very first paragraph.
Oh, did I miss that? Okay, that's all that I had. Thank you.
Trustee App?
Pretty much everything I was looking at was answered. The only other question I have is how's the commercial portion of that coming?
We're processing that as well. That subdivision improvement agreement will be coming to you in January.
Trustee Jeffrey?
All my questions have been answered.
Same with me, so I will entertain a motion. Oh, go ahead.
Could we get some more information or clarification on the off-site street improvements that have been agreed to, which are awesome, specifically about the frontage road improvements? In the language, it just says, in accordance with CDOT's requirements in the permit. Could you elaborate on that, what's involved and what will be done?
So the frontage road is administered by CDOT, and so we obtain permits from CDOT for the improvements on the frontage road, which will include 3 connections. One at Flywheel Drive, it'll be part of the commercial, one at Bonanza Drive extended, which is Bonanza just extended through to the frontage road. And the one that we're dealing with here today would be the one that's connects from Wagon Trail extended to the frontage road. And basically those improvements are outlined in the traffic report that's the town approved. So basically it's just going to be full turn intersection at those 3 intersections. Well, yes, for this one would be a full turn intersection. And I think that the one at Flywheel, which is the coming next, I think that's quarter turn. I have to check, but in any case, and then it'll be basically XL decel, which will essentially be another continuous lane along the frontage road.
Anything else from anyone? Go ahead.
Was just one other thing that I was remembering as well. So the way you have this phase is kind of front to back. And so I'm curious on, I guess, kind of maybe more means and methods on how that goes, especially if we've done infrastructure improvements at the front. If we're having construction going kind of through that, I guess one from a kind of a traffic maintenance, making sure that, you know, equipment and things like that that are going back to phase C to build those houses, you know, damages that has on roads that have already been put into place, you know, also, I guess for this type of area, maybe traffic's not as big of an issue, but just, can you kind of address, I guess to me, it just seems a little backwards because you're kind of working yourself into a corner versus out of a corner for construction. Can you kind of maybe discuss a little bit about how it was arrived to going kind of that phasing route?
Well, it's pretty much the same idea as what's happening at Silver Peaks and Blue Lakes too. You start at the front and you start where the infrastructure is and you work from there. You don't start at the back and work forward. But essentially it's, I think the idea was that it benefited the town and the residents to have Wagon Trail be put in as a continuous connection at the beginning, and then everything kind of flowed from there. We had gone various ways of saying, well, maybe you go from north to south, and but that seemed to make the most sense, was just to start with Wagon Trail and move from there. And then for the idea that you move from front to back was really more similar to Silver Peaks and Blue Lake and everything else, where you start where the infrastructure is.
Okay, and then I guess I may have missed that then for, I guess for long-term improvements. Again, I'm kind of looking at like how Blue Lakes transpired and some of the roads were put in place and then kind of left for quite a long time. And then also when you go on and move to phase B, if there's any, I guess, damages to the road that have already kind of been turned over, do we have provisions in there to kind of help cover the town for that type of scenario?
I think the plan here is that all of this is going to be sequenced pretty quickly, assuming that Trustee Strzok's prediction does not come to pass. We're hoping this will all move fairly quickly. But it's the same that the town does with warranties.
Okay, that makes sense. Thanks.
Anything else from anyone? Go ahead.
When I look at the schematic of the different phases, and this one drawing that we have, I don't see any neighborhood parks or open spaces in there. Has that been allowed for?
It is. If you look, each phase has a different park with it. It's right in the middle. There's tracks, we call them tracks A, B, C, and D. Those are the parks. And if you look, if you go down Wagon Trail, right in the middle, and it pretty much creates a trail corridor that connects all those parks together to begin with. And then there's going to be there's a 40-acre open space area that's actually south of this property that we're going to connect into as well.
Thank you.
And I will just point out, if after the meeting, if you ask Steve, there's better drawings from their first submittal on this that show those parks a little bit more clearly. Anything else? Yep.
This is just an informational item, but there's a big discussion at CML about parks and developments. And because of the water problems we have in the state, more and more communities are going to natural habitat versus Kentucky bluegrass. And that's what I would suggest. It's much less water intensive, and let's face it, Kentucky bluegrass is not native to Colorado. So the recommendations of the amount of towns doing it, Fort Collins and some of the other towns, are the parks are being done in native grasses and the native soils, so it cuts down on the water usage.
Yes, we have a mixture here of native open space and developed irrigated turf as well. So there's a mix of the two, and of that, I think that's predominantly native.
I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve Resolution 2018-26, a resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Lochbuie approving the subdivision improvement agreement Lochbuie Station between the town and CW-Lochbuie LLC.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Counterman.
Yes.
Trustee Strzok.
Yes.
Trustee Doherty.
Yes.
Trustee Morris.
Yes.
Mayor Lofgren.
Yes.
Trustee Jeffrey.
Yes.
Trustee Ott.
Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Next up is ordinance 2018-637. Ms. Jerome.
Mr. Stamey contacted me, I don't know, a little while ago and told me that we were having some issues and some complaints about construction activity late into the evening hours. So we took a look at the noise ordinance that the town has on the books, and it provides that, you know, you can't make unreasonable noises, but then it provides a list of what it considers to be a prima facie case, in other words, sort of a basic case, if you will, of what is an unreasonable noise. It didn't really list anything in there related to construction activities. So we wanted to amend that ordinance to add a provision that says, as a matter of, you know, the basic rule is that construction activities after 7 p.m. or between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. are considered unreasonable, and you're going to have to prove to us why they're reasonable. We do have an exception written into that standard for emergency construction activities, so that if there's some need to get out there and fix something ASAP, obviously we're going to not be prosecuting under that. But so that is the reason this is in your packet tonight, is because the town has been receiving some concerns about that.
Questions or comments? Trustee Doherty?
I don't have anything.
Trustee Ott?
I was in when this transpired. It was interesting to note that we didn't have anything already in the town code, so I think this is needed.
Trustee Jeffrey?
Nothing, thank you.
Trustee Strack?
Would you consider summer hours? You know, 9 o'clock at night in the summer is not really out of the question for construction a lot of times. So I don't know, you'd have to add a certain 2 or 3 months out of the year that they could make work till 9 o'clock at night or something. We also have trash trucks that start at 6 o'clock in the morning on our streets as far as noise goes. So that's all I have to say.
Trustee Morris?
Are the complaints stemming from road construction or home building, or what's the source of the complaints?
Yeah, home building's why.
Traffic
Which
from
is,
home.
you know, fairly temporary generally. Yeah. But it is, our code enforcement officer's been dealing with a lot of complaints. I don't know if you make it till dusk, and that makes it pretty early in the wintertime. But makes it later in the summer.
I've seen complaints about the re-roofers too this summer.
Yeah, I think 7.
Else? Trustee Counterman?
I like the way that it is.
And I would just note, initially I thought about the summer hours too, but I think a lot of the complaints I saw were people with young children that were very upset that their babies were being awoken. And I've also seen the same complaints about the trash pickups, and I think that's a separate issue that we should address. But a lot of people are very upset that they're coming at 6 a.m. and starting the trash collection, so we might need to talk to Waste Management about that. But that's a separate issue. So any other comments on this ordinance? I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 2018-637, an ordinance amending the Town of Lochbuie Municipal Code by providing a construction noise other than emergency construction between the hours of 7 p.m. and 7 a.m. the next day shall be considered prima facie unreasonable and unlawful noise.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Morris.
Yes.
Mayor Lofgren.
Yes.
Trustee Counterman.
Yes.
Trustee Ott. Trustee Doherty.
Yes.
Trustee Strack.
Yes.
Trustee Jeffrey.
Yes.
Motion carries. Ordinance 2018-638. Ms. Jerome? Yeah. Since it's a U night.
So at the election in November, this board referred 3 questions to the voters. 2 of them were successful. One regarding how we publish our ordinances, and then one regarding how we publish our statement of bill payments and contracts awarded. So state law says that you're supposed to publish that in the newspaper within 20 days of the day you take action, unless the voters approve a change to that. So in an effort to try to save publication costs, we asked the voters, can we please just put this up on our website instead of publishing it in full? And the voters agreed. And so our code has a provision in it that talks about how we publish payment of our bills and our awarded contracts that is now outdated, and all this really does is bring that code provision into compliance with the voter approval that was provided in November.
Questions or comments on this from anyone? I'll entertain a motion.
I move we approve ordinance number 2018-638, an ordinance amending section 2-12-110 of the Town of Lochbuie Municipal Code by providing that ordinances may be published by title only in accordance with the voter approval provided at the November 6th, 2018 regular town election.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Ott. Trustee Jeffrey.
Yes.
Trustee Morris.
Affirmative.
Trustee Counterman.
Yes.
Mayor Lofgren.
Yes.
Trustee Strock. Trustee Doherty.
Yes.
Thank you.
The motion carries. And now ordinance 2018-639, Ms. Giron.
So I just described to you ordinance 2018-639, but the same thing applies to ordinance, the one that you just applied.
Flipped them.
Now I'm. Yes. Yeah, this is the bill pay? 638 is the publication by title only, yeah. They just approved the one that was for bill pay.
These are both the voter approved things. That's what we really need.
Bottom line is, there's two ordinances on the table for you tonight. One is for bill payment and publishing it on the website, and the other is for the publication of ordinances only by title in the newspaper, as long as we publish them in full on the town's website. The motion that was just made, I believe, was for 639, and now we need an ordinance 638 motion.
It's 638.
For ordinances.
All right. I think I must have gone too fast forward in my. Good. So that's what this is about.
At the end of the day, as long as we approve both, we're good to go.
Yes.
So,
Thank you.
questions or comments on that one? I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve ordinance 2018-639, an ordinance amending section 4-20-40 of the Town of Lochbuie Municipal Code, providing that the town may post in full on the town website its statements of bill payments and contracts awarded within 20 days of taking action to pay such bills or enter into such contracts.
I'd like to amend that. Instead of being 4-20-40, it should be 4-2-40.
I'm sorry,
Is that
yes.
a friendly amendment?
Yes.
That's a friendly amendment.
Friendly amendment, yeah.
Second.
Okay, as amended, I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Sorry. Trustee Morris. Trustee Doherty.
Yes.
Trustee Ott. Trustee Counterman.
Yes.
Trustee Jeffrey.
Yes.
Trustee Strock.
Yes.
Mayor Lofgren.
Yes, and the motion carries. Next up is the website linkage policy. Ms. Graham.
So my name is on this agenda item, but I think that Town Clerk Blackston might also want to speak a little bit on this. From time to time, we get requests to add links to third-party websites from the town's website. And I don't know really how big a problem that is. Linda can probably speak to that more than me. I know that in some jurisdictions it can become a really big problem, and every nonprofit corporation out there will ask to be linked, and it's sometimes a problem. And so we looked at the town's website and realized that we don't have a linkage policy that we post on the website, nor have we adopted a linkage policy. And frankly, we don't really even have general privacy policies or anything that we've adopted in our website. So when I started looking at the linkage policy, we also decided to put information up on the town website about what we do with personally identifying information and how we use cookies. And just a basic disclaimer, which is that, you know, if you rely on this website, you do it at your own risk. We try our darndest to keep this up to date and to keep it accurate, but we make no guarantees to you on that. So the cookies issue, the disclaimer issue aside, and those are pretty standard across every municipal website that you're going to take a look at around here. I just wanted to really touch base with you mostly on the linkage policy because it kind of touches on a topic that we've talked about several times regarding our newsletter and how close we want to hold our newsletter to just town business versus opening it up to advertise nonprofit events that may be of interest to a bunch of the public in the town, may not be of interest to everybody, but maybe of interest to either a small or a great number of residents within the town. And just the concern that I've voiced to you as your legal advisor about how opening up the door to one makes it really, really difficult to close the door to another, especially if the reason that you're making the decision whether to prohibit somebody from being either providing notice on your website and or in your newsletter is because you don't like their message, right? So we're not allowed to ever look at content. If we open up a forum for public discourse, if you will, we cannot be content-based in our decision-making as to what we will or will not put either in our newsletter or on our website. So with that basic background, I'm suggesting to you a linkage policy like is what is in your packet here, which holds that pretty close to pure town business, but does open it up a little bit so that if, for instance, we worked with a nonprofit on an event that we're co-sponsoring as a town, we may want to be able to put up information about that event since town funds are being used to support that event. So if you look at this page in your packet, I took this from a bunch of other websites, but it's honed down further than some other jurisdictions will do. And part of that is because I'm trying to make it so that we never have to think about content when we make a decision whether we will or will not link. But I'm also cognizant of the fact that we have a pretty small staff here. And as I've said, in some jurisdictions, the requests for linking from your website take up, some staff resource, and we may not want to put staff resource to that. Again, this is a policy decision of yours. So what I'm suggesting is that we only link to state, local, federal government agencies, so the county and the county's aging agencies and that kind of thing. That seems appropriate. State colleges or universities, if they want to put a link up there, that's something that you'll see is common. Public school district and registered HOAs located in Loch Buoy. So I mean, that's again, this is all policy decision making for you because none of this is really content based. This is all town business, in my opinion. And even HOAs, they can lessen the burden of town government in the way that they operate sometimes. So if you want to include the ability of HOAs to put notices up on the town's website so that there can be a link out to an HOA website, I don't know, honestly, if the Silver Peaks HOA does or doesn't have its own website. But it might be handy for us to have something like that so they can see when HOA meetings are, that kind of thing. Again, it's a policy decision of yours. Organizations with which the town has an existing formal contractual relationship. So there may be, contractors out there that are doing projects for the town, that kind of thing, that we may, during the pendency of that project, want to put links up to that. Any kind of an organization that receives direct financial or some sort of in-kind support from the town. So, I mean, there are communities, and this community I know has as well, looked at donation policies in the past where set aside in the budget a certain amount of funding to potentially, support some activities within the town that we consider to be generally beneficial to the town. And so maybe we want to link to that. And then again, corporate sponsors of town-initiated events only for the purpose of advertising that event. So that's pretty tight. I'm here to have a discussion about it. So
First, I will see if anyone has any questions, and then we'll do comments and discussion. Don't see any questions. Okay, so we'll do comments and discussion. Trustee Strack?
Oh, boy. So in the link policy where you say we can do federal government agencies, universities, public schools, HOAs. So now in our newsletter or our website, we can advertise events for the schools. We can advertise garage sales for the HOA.
So first of all, this is only a website linking policy. So this isn't talking about what kind of ad space we're going to put in our newsletter. And that's something that's probably a different discussion, because in that case, you're taking up some real estate on paper that you may or may not want to take up, and there's money associated with that. What this is what this would cover would be like if the Silver Peaks HOA has its own website, we would just have something that says, if if you want information about HOAs, here's the Silver Peaks, and it would just be a link. You know what I mean? You push on the blue print type, and it's a direct website.
Okay, so, then the second one, excuse me, organizations with existing formal contractual relations, what if it's a realtor's, organization? I've noticed some towns lately have signs up that, are advertising realtors in their town. I mean, they're just put up by the cities.
Well, we wouldn't have an existing contractual relationship
But
necessarily.
just back to giving that
but-
website link. So if it were, Weld County AAA, it'd be okay.
Well, I'm thinking about like that Weld County Food Bank that we had a contract with, or the High Plains Library District, if we end up with a contract with them, then all I'm saying is that we would have some place on our website where you could, if you wanted information about book services in Loch Bowie, visit the High Plains Library District here, link. And again,
disclaimer.
these are just conversations and suggestions. There's nothing about any of this that's written in stone. And I think Linda actually has some thoughts on it, or at least.
I think this is great.
Any comments, anything you would move, change, remove, add?
No, I think it's got a lot of possibility. I think it's probably how we interpret it to some extent, so.
Trustee Morris?
I don't have anything.
Trustee Counterman?
I think it would be okay to open up some of those linkages. But I think we should limit those to specific entities that we're dealing with directly.
Trustee Jeffrey?
I was wondering if the expectation would be that whoever it is, if it's a state, local, or federal government agency, if they would be contacting, let's say, Linda, and saying that they'd like to have it linked on our page. I hope that we're not assuming that we would be trying to create a list of everything that would be linked. That would be my one thought. Like, I don't want to try and make a list. My other thought is, selfishly, about the public school districts. To me, it would make sense that the links would be just for school districts that are in our in our town, I guess,
Any thoughts on that from the clerk? She's nodding over there.
I've agreed with everything Maureen said. I do think it's a good thing to have the policy. And so in the short period of time that I have been here, we've had some questions of people wanting to put stuff on there. We've been debating if they should or not, and should we or should we not. And again, with staff time being limited based on the small staff we have, I think this is a good policy to put in place, and I like the little bit of limitations we do have in this policy, so actually I'm okay with this. So, I don't know.
Yeah, go ahead.
I think it's a really good idea. I think we definitely need to have it. I think one thing that I don't see is very clear would be how somebody would go about getting the link on our website, and I wonder if that should not be contained within the policy as well.
And about how and who to contact? I like that.
And I would agree with you that we are not going to go out and search for every possible entity that fits that description. It would only be if somebody makes a request. So I know, for instance, that the mesothelioma Society has, for some reason, contacted every city that I know of in the Denver metro area and is trying to get linked off of their pages. And, all PR is good PR, I guess, right? So it's free if you can get them to do it. So if we were to get that request, we would look at this list and I think we would say, sorry, we don't link to that under our policy. And we wouldn't have to have a conversation with them about whether they are or not a great organization, as I'm sure they are. It's just that we would have this sort of closed policy on that. But I absolutely would agree with you that this is something that is initiated by that party, and we'll make that more clear in here, so.
Yeah, go ahead.
So we currently have some links on the police department website, like the sheriff's department, all the different things that we wouldn't be asking them to request those things. to be there. We have like LexisNexis to file accident reports online. We have several different links that we utilize that are other government agencies that we feel are servicing the community. So we make the decisions to do that. So I think those are kind of the ones you're talking about that are directly related.
Yeah. Those are all perfectly appropriate. And yeah, we wouldn't wait for them to come to us and to ask for that. But that's your business. I mean, you're doing that because that's town business. And so you could put links up for town business for any purpose that makes sense for your business. This is really for those outside entities that are coming in and asking to be linked.
Trustee At?
I agree with everything that's been said. It should be limited to other governmental agencies and stuff that directly benefits the citizens of the town and the town itself.
Trustee Doherty?
Generally, I really like this. However, I had a couple of questions and thoughts based on what Chief said. So the way that I would read this right now is if the police department has a link for, hey, if you're having a problem with domestic abuse or drug, like a drug helpline, unless those are government ran, then those are not appropriate for based on this. And I guess, I don't know if there's a definition that we can put in place that allows for something like that, because I don't think we should be taking those type of links down. If somebody needs to reach out and get help past the police department on, like I said, domestic abuse or alcohol abuse or anything like that, that they're trying to come to the town and look for help, I guess. And maybe that's not appropriate for the town, but I guess there might be some gray areas in there that don't fit this description, but maybe, you know, like I said, from where can you go to dispose of your drugs that you have? You know, something like that I think is still useful to have in the town and on our website for people for reference. But I think generally those are probably going to be nonprofits, and so how we really draw that distinction and draw that line, I don't know if there's a good distinction, but I think there can be, I think there could be some links that we're taking off of our website right now that could be potentially very beneficial for some people in town. So I'd like to maybe see if we can find a legal way to define that, to allow for something like that. And I think it's primarily from the police department that we'd have something like that. I don't know if it's, you know, anything else that really would be in that, but I think we should allow something like that. And then the second one is, since the public schools are open for, you can kind of send your kid wherever you want. I definitely get having the local ones, but I do think that we shouldn't just say local ones, because if somebody does want to opt to a different district, I don't think we should limit it to just one. I think that's showing preference that the town shouldn't show. And then, let's see. I also am curious on how we're defining that these links have to be requested. You know, we have a partnership with CML. So are we going to take our links down from CML or whatnot until we get a formal request from CML that we put a link to them? I think there's a lot of links. Let's say Safe Built. You know, we have a contract with Safe Built. Are we waiting until Safe Built asks us to make that, versus us saying, hey, this is good resource and the good information for people of the town that are looking to build to maybe get some additional input? Are we really waiting on them to request that from us, or is there a way that we can define kind of a core services that the town provides, that we're not taking all these down and saying, well, until somebody asks us, we're going to take these down? Because I think there's, like I said, I think there's a core outside linking that we should be doing. I think the school districts are one of them. I think, you know, if we go within the, you know, the closest 10 miles of school for school districts, we're only going to get, you know, maybe 6. I think that's even high. But, you know, so I think there's a core that we should look to do right now. And I'm not saying we're spending a half an hour to find out where Berkshire HOA's website is. I don't think we should be spending a ton of time, but I think like the school districts, it should take 2 minutes to find you know, the ones generally close and be able to link those and have a spot for local schools or something like that, that I think we should be able to do and like I said, should do upfront rather than waiting for people to come to us. I think this should be a secondary catch, not a primary catch. That's all that I have.
Trustee Add.
Well, I think the ones we've got linked now are pretty much, everybody agrees on that. Just leave them as there is. You know, if somebody requests a linkage, but like, I think the suicide prevention line and the drug abuse line, those are state-sponsored links. When you go to that link, they refer you to a private agency. That's beyond our control. I don't disagree with, I think that's a good idea to have the links to these different substance abuse, anything else a citizen needs. And if they send them to a private contractor, that's out of our, we're helping the citizen improve their life. That's what we're supposed to do. I think with the links going to a private contractor, that's fine with me. And again, I'm happy with what we've got now, as long as the rest of the board is. My feeling is just leave those alone and just give Linda and Steve the discretion to decide if somebody requests yes or no, whether they should be allowed on. And if they have any questions about whether they should be allowed on, bring it to the board's attention, or at least the mayor's attention.
I think kind of the idea of the policy is to make it so it isn't so discretionary, though.
But she has the idea of what, if it's a government agency, it's automatically gets on. I mean, if it's a nonprofit, no. I mean, that's her discretion. That's what we're deciding, right? Okay.
Yeah. Go ahead.
You know, I think Weld County has a huge list of websites for vulnerable citizens in our vulnerable population with lots and lots of help. And I think looking to Weld County to start with to make this list, because they're all approved websites and approved services, would be a place to start. And we can gradually build that list as we see we need other things. But I think, and Steve knows, Weld County has a pamphlet that puts out all these services. So we really just need the one link to Weld County.
I was just gonna say, I think that's the idea, yeah. Yeah.
Just one comment. So on the list, just my opinion on it, and you guys are the policymakers, not me, but just because it'd be hard to make the list, and I think most of the Weld County services that we share with now and have discussion with and put on the website, or have had questions to put on the website, I would say we just stick with those, and then when they reach out to us, because some of them, because here again, if I'm tracking a list, that's just more, and believe me, I want to do as much as we can for the residents of Black Bowie as we can, but I also don't want to miss something. And if I reach out to, and I miss one person to reach out to, then I feel, I mean, I don't want to do a disservice to anybody. So it'd be great if we didn't build a list and then just, we put on there what we already have, and then when they need us to add something, they contact us, because I think it's going to be really difficult to make sure we get Weld County, and then, you know, we have one portion in Adams County, and so we're going to do all that. And I think it's more complicated than it needs to be, and that's why I kind of like this policy to make it a little limited, because we are short on staff. And then just to make, I mean, a lot of cities who have those in Weld County, I mean, they have a full-time PIO and communications department, and we're sort of limited here. So I want to do the best we can and give all the resources we are able to give, but I also want to make sure we're not either dropping the ball because we take on too big of a thing. So that's just my comments on that.
So the issues with the drug treatment and those kind of things, like detox centers or whatever, those kind of things, we wouldn't be linking directly to any individual one of those. It would be like a resource center where somebody could go. So, as a matter of fact, it's interesting that we're talking about this now, because in the last month I've probably turned down 2 different places that have tried to emailed me wanting to put things on for drug treatment. And it's some marketing person that they're not from around here, and they're just trying to get on everybody's website. And I've just told them, no, we can't do that on our website. So it isn't about trying not to service the community. It's about not trying to deal with people that are maybe even in it for profit, not even nonprofit, right? So we'll put the resources, whether it is Weld County, whether it's Adams County, whether there's the Victims Advocate has a lot of services. There's a lot of different things that we can do that can set these people up with the options of the private industry, but we don't have to put that on there, if that makes
And,
sense.
and I don't think this policy as written would prevent the police chief, whose job it is to ensure both public safety and that law enforcement is being accomplished, from saying that as part of his role, you know, some public safety county organization, he wants to put a link on the website. I go for that. But I think what we're really trying to do is put in place a tool that can prevent us from, for us to use when we get these inquiries to say, you know, you're a for-profit drug rehab. We don't do it. We don't touch them, you know? So.
Mr. Conrad?
Just to address your issue, Grant, about the drug abuse and alcohol abuse and those types of things, I don't think that we need to supply a link for that unless it's an emergency, and if it is an emergency, it's probably going to go through some sort of law enforcement agency and be referred to an outside agency. So I still believe that we should keep our linkage directly related to the town's business.
I have one.
Go ahead.
So I see, we kind of talked about existing links. If it's not a ton of work, and it might be, I think we should do a staff audit of the link. I can't speak to every link that we have linked on our website right now. And if this is a policy that we're putting forward, I think we should do a general audit of what we linked right now. I can't speak to say, hey, all of the links are appropriate right now. I don't know every link that we have linked on our website. So I would like to ask staff to do kind of an audit and say, okay, within this policy, these links are acceptable, and maybe we do find a couple that are not acceptable. But I don't think that we should just say any that we have right now are acceptable. Again, mainly because I don't know all of them that we have.
So just a reminder, we will do that, and I appreciate you bringing that up, but, so we're switching to our new website on January 1st, and so when they transfer everything over, we'll just make sure that that's happening, and that's kind of the goal, just to kind of clean things up as we switch it over to the new website, so we kind of have a little more user-friendly website as we go forward, so.
Thanks.
Anything else from anyone? And the only comment I had is, my views on this are much different than my views on the newsletter, so I did want to make very clear that this is a website linkage policy, not an everything policy. And the other thing I had to say on that was, I'm okay linking to the HOAs, but I have a very different view with respect to the newsletter and that kind of thing, so just wanted to make that clear. I did also like Trustee Jeffrey's idea of maybe adding in here how and who to contact in order to ask to get your link on the website. So that would be my suggestion for an addition to this policy. Are we looking for action on this tonight?
No, I think we're just really looking for consensus from you. I don't necessarily think that this rises to the level of needing Board of Trustee approval by resolution or motion. But with this input, I think I have fairly clear direction as to some amendments that we need to make. So we're going to go ahead and make those, and it'll be ready then to go up when the new website's ready to go up. And if any of you ever have any concerns, when you review that and you want to bring it back forward, we can certainly do that. So.
Else on that from anyone? Okay, we will move on. I did notice the two gentlemen in the audience who I think did have public comment tonight but forgot to sign in. I will get to you at the end of our action items if that's okay. We only have like 3 more. Okay. Action item G, the IGA for police services. Chief.
Just renewing with Keensburg, and we got about a 4% raise built in is all that we changed this year. So same amount of hours as we've had previously. And Keensburg's already signed theirs. I think they approved it 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Questions or comments on this agreement? Okay, then I will entertain a motion.
I move we approve the 2019 amendment and renewal intergovernmental agreement for police services between the town of Keensburg, Colorado, and the town of Lockbowie, Colorado.
Second.
Motion and second, roll call, please.
Trustee Counterman.
Yes?
Trustee Ott. Trustee Morris.
Yes.
Mayor Lofgren.
Yes.
Trustee Doherty.
Yes.
Trustee Jeffrey.
Yes.
Trustee Strack.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up was added item H, reconsideration of the Mayor Pro Tem. Trustee Ott.
I would like to reopen the pro tem election. I just felt that we didn't have a full council representation, and we had one person missing that I believe was supportive of me, and I would like to reopen the vote on the mayor pro tem.
So as I view this, this is a two-step process. The first will be discussion and consideration of the motion to reconsider, and if that passes, then we will reopen the vote. So first, on whether we should reconsider, any comments or questions? Trustee Jeffrey.
We had enough people here present that our action at the last meeting should be held firm. That's the reason we're appointed to the board, and I don't believe this should be reconsidered.
Trustee Ott.
I believe it was we had two people, we had one person missing and one vacancy on the board, and I believe it should be reopened for the consideration of the full board.
Trustee Doherty.
So, I guess my thoughts on this, I guess I'm obviously a little biased, but I guess my main thought is we have had and will have in the future other votes that do not have all and do not have more than just one of the board members. And I think this kind of opens the door. I mean, everything that we vote on is important, and to kind of say that this is more important than anything else that we vote on, I don't think is correct. And like I said, there have been in the past and there will be in the future things that we vote on that we are missing one or two board members. And I think if this is a precedence that we set, I think that's a dangerous precedent to set, because that's going to likely bring up a lot of things that need to be re-voted on once we have a larger majority of a board or even a full board. So that's my thought on that.
Trustee Strack.
I thought it was an important decision, and I thought it was kind of made at a time out of order with little haste and some confusion. I believe our town attorney said we had months or something to make that decision, and I think that kind of went right over my head also, or I may have said something at that time. I'm perfectly happy with doing another vote, and I'm perfectly happy standing behind that vote.
Trustee Morris.
A question, was the vote for pro tem done before appointing Trustee Counterman to the board, or was that after? Was there a particular reason why it was done before?
Agenda. And we didn't know we were going to be appointing Trustee Counterman. It was a discussion of the process.
I think the whole point of the board is to make decisions, and as long as we have a quorum present to do that, the votes are done. I'm reluctant to open the can of worms of going back and reopening something or taking action on something that there's already been a final action on. But I think if that were the case, then laws and legislation would happen without any recourse to revisit them. And I was not in attendance that night, and in retrospect, I think I would have liked to have asked that I participate telephonically and have my vote cast, but that's not how it played out. I would like my vote to count. I would like to have a vote in it. I'd be in favor of reopening it and doing it, even though that goes against what I said about taking action on something that's already been final. So if it goes to a vote, I'd like to vote that we revisit it.
Okay. Trustee Counterman.
I agree that it could open up doors in the future, and that we're going to continue to have absenteeism, but it seems to me like that evening, the board was awful short on participants to make that serious of a decision. So I would, although I support what Mr. Dougherty said, I would be open for a reconsideration.
And my thoughts, first I would say we didn't have months to do this. We had to do it at the first regular meeting. Trustee Strzok, I think you were thinking of, we could have delayed the process of appointing the vacancy.
I was confused. I was trying to just point that out.
Okay, and then I guess my concern here is similar to Trustee Doherty's and sort of what was echoed by Trustee Morris about finality. I think once we take action, if there's a quorum of the board, without good reason, we shouldn't go back to revisit it. And I understand that there will be occasions where there will be good reason to revisit final action. We learn something new, something different has happened that changes what is appropriate to legislate. I don't know that this is that circumstance. I think the only thing that has changed here is we had absent board members who are now present. And I think if that is enough to revisit final action, every time someone's absent and we have a different membership of the board at the next meeting, that we could be revisiting decisions that are made at a prior meeting. And I just think that's a terrible precedent to set without, as I said, something substantial to change the circumstances under which legislation was passed. And that's all I have to say about that. Is there anything else anyone has? Yeah, Trustee Morris.
I think it would be appropriate to reopen it and then, I mean, because if I understand right, there'd be a motion, a second, and then a vote to revisit it, correct?
This discussion we're having right now is whether we should reopen, whether we should reconsider.
Yes, and it will go to a vote. And the voice of the body of the council can decide that. It's not one individual deciding that, correct?
Right.
So if the body decides not to revisit it as, you know, as 7 voices, then it's settled.
Right.
So I just want to say one thing, if I may, Mayor. So we follow fairly relaxed rules of procedure and always have, and it has worked well for this body, I think. Sometimes strict parliamentary procedure and following Robert's rules can just trip you up and waste a lot of people's time. But generally, the rule for in parliamentary procedure on a motion to reconsideration is that the motion has to be made by somebody who was on the prevailing side of whatever the decision is that you're trying to open up for reconsideration. Now, in this case, as I recall, we did a secret ballot on.
No, we did hands.
We didn't. So we had a motion on the floor. We took nominations on the floor, and then if you can help me recall how that went, was it just hands for the one candidate and then hands for the other candidate? Okay. So there wasn't really a motion, for instance, that said, you know, I move that we appoint Grant Dougherty as the mayor pro tem.
Correct.
It was more, okay. All right. Then in that case, it's something of a different beast and not your sort of standard motion for reconsideration of a motion. And so I think we can just proceed as you see fit.
Okay. Anything else? Trustee Strzok?
I think when it comes to town business and we have a quorum, we owe it to our citizens to move forward. I think this is an important decision that affects mainly the board and not the citizens. And for that reason, I think we should reapproach it.
Anything else from anyone? Then I will entertain a motion.
I'll make the motion to
Reconsider.
to reconsider Mayor Pro Tem appointment.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Mayor Lofgren.
No.
Trustee Ott. Trustee Doherty.
No?
Trustee Morris. Trustee Counterman.
Yes.
Trustee Strzok.
Yes.
Trustee Jeffrey.
No.
By a vote of 4-3, the motion carries. So the next part of that will be a vote on Mayor Pro Tem. So I guess I will open the floor for nominations or renominations.
I'd like to nominate trustee Dave Ott as mayor pro tem.
Do I have any other nominations?
I would like to nominate Grant Doherty as Mayor Pro Tem.
Any other nominations? With our same nominations, now that we do have a full board and it isn't as clear what the vote will end up being, I will let trustee Doherty and trustee Ott say a few words if they would like. So whoever wants to go first. Either way, trustee Ott.
I've been on the board for 4.5 years. I'm going over to 100 hours of education for CML on the policies of local government. I've learned a lot about local government. I still have a lot to learn. I'm going to continue my education with it. I'm brief, I'm to the point, and I know how to delegate authority.
Doherty?
So I've also been on the board for essentially the same amount of time. I think just a little bit more since I was appointed just before, but essentially the same. I've also, especially recently, I've become a lot more involved in the community. You know, helping out with the County Road 2 project has been something that I've really tried to help spearhead and make sure that, you know, the needs of the town were kind of met and spearheaded on that. The other thing too, I definitely understand that there's a larger role if something long-term happens with the mayor, but I guess generally what we've seen is it's running the meeting in the absence of the mayor. And I run meetings all the time. That's one of the things that I do as my job. And so honestly, I think I'm really efficient on running meetings, you know, trying to make sure that we're keeping on the agenda, keeping on task and so forth. And honestly, I see that kind of as the primary role of the pro tem is running the meetings in the absence. And I think I have kind of the experience to show on running meetings. So.
Okay. With those comments, I will do another hand vote. All in favor of trustee Ott, please raise your hands. All in favor of trustee Doherty, please raise your hands. Okay, by a vote of 4-3, trustee Ott is the mayor pro tem. And did you get who voted for who for the minutes? Okay, and then we will move on to action item I, resolution 2018-24, Mr. Stamey.
Thank you, Mayor. This is to amend our ordinance that we're setting mill levies because we had received an update on the Adams County valuation, which changed our valuation by about $97,000. It has a net change in the revenue of around $1,800. We thought it was important just to amend the resolution so we had the right valuation number for us to work with our budget.
Questions or comments from anyone? Seeing none, I will entertain a motion.
I move to approve resolution 2018-24 as amended. A resolution of the Board of Trustees of the Town of Lochbuie setting the 2019 mill levies.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Trustee Strock.
Yes.
Trustee Jeffrey.
Yes.
Mayor Lofgren.
Yes.
Trustee Ott.
Yes.
Trustee Doherty.
Yes.
Trustee Morris.
Yes.
Trustee Counterman. Thank you.
Okay, and the next item is, sorry to you gentlemen, he told me before the meeting that you guys needed to speak, and then I totally spaced it when I got to public comments, so you guys step forward and.
Thank you for your time. So I'm Dan Laco. This is my business partner, Bob Fischetti. We were here about 1.5 years ago presenting a nonprofit that we started called Achieve More. And recently we had a conversation with Trustee Ott, and he asked us to come in, kind of give you an update and see if you guys want to discuss something further. So I don't know if you guys have anything to offer to the conversation or.
Only that, first I would ask if you could just share a little bit more details, because we do have 2 new members who aren't familiar with what your project is.
I apologize, we didn't bring any brochures, but we started a nonprofit. We want to, or we're in the process of building livestock facility to help get more kids involved, kids who don't currently have opportunity on rural land. And we will have a facility about 2 miles east of Lockwood here. And we approached the board here to try to annex and Lockwood. Wasn't financially feasible, so we've gone the route of Weld County. We've received our USR special use permit, and we're kind of proceeding forward down that path. But I thought maybe you guys had some other options.
It's my understanding that you're building your own wastewater treatment plant and everything else, is that correct?
That's correct. We have our own water system design and our own wastewater system design, and part of the infrastructure started already.
So part of the big, I guess, difference of opinion was we had to provide utilities to them, which they are taking care of themselves. And I think this is a good idea because Brighton's coming up the other side of I-76. I personally don't want Brighton on the north side of Weld County Road 2. Put them in a position that we would annex out to them and kind of stake our territory. And I think it's a good idea. They want to be part of Lockwood. I would like them to be part of Lockwood.
I guess my response would be probably communicate with our staff first. I guess my concern is if they annex into town, then we would, their expectation would be that we would be on our public water and our public sewer, right? Is that right? Or we generally don't let people operate their own plants.
That's typical, so that'd be part of the discussion you'd have to have, as well as usually when an annexation, there's dedication of water rights to the town that come with the property, and there was probably, we'd need to review in more detail what their USR is with Weld County, the types of uses that are approved, and the board would have to either recognize those or accept that to some extent. So there'd be that kind of information we would need to review as well.
I guess other board members feel free to comment, but I guess my indication and my reaction is talk to our staff and see if it's even something we could work out financially and logistically and all of that.
Okay, well, it seemed to me like it was more the board's decision to see if you guys are willing to be more flexible on what is typical, because I don't think the typical route is really feasible for us at this point. We've already invested our resources into the path that we've chosen, and if your only alternative is to connect to Loch Buoy, it makes no sense to us, because ultimately we're better off staying in Weld County with less taxes. So, you know, we want to be part of the community if it was financially feasible. It doesn't sound like that's the way, again, without your permission to even pursue that.
And I don't mean to send you round and round, but I guess what I'm suggesting is until you work with our staff can't give us recommendations. I don't think anyone on this board could say to you whether it makes sense for us to accept another sewer plant in our town limits without some recommendation from Mr. Ramey or from our staff. Yeah.
I do want to just point out to the board that we do have a code that requires that all
Thought so.
premises within the town connect to and receive municipal utility services. So it would take a policy decision change on your part to waive that requirement if you were to bring them into the town and allow them to continue to operate their facilities. Okay.
And that was kind of the point. There's really no discussion until we know that you guys are at least open to the idea. Otherwise, there's like say, there's no benefit to us to pay any additional monies that would be required to pursue this if you guys aren't willing to, because we already have all the approvals we need. This was just more to be part of the community.
Comments? Go ahead.
I would love to see us be able to welcome you into the fold of Loch Buoy and connect to you guys. I think there's so much unknown, at least for me. I feel like there are several hoops that I'd like you to jump through in terms of exploring and feasibility issues, working with staff before it gets to our level. I don't have anything in front of me to look at, pros, cons, options, alternatives, variances. I would like to look at this and look into it, but I need more than to just have a conversation at a board meeting about it, guys.
Okay, fair enough.
I think maybe a next approach might be just have a narrative or summary of kind of your uses, maybe a site map that shows what's going on the site. And they can look at where the property is in relation to the town, and then I think we can get better feedback and direction after if we have a little more information. I can meet with you and talk with you about what I think would be good data to present.
If I may, please explore this.
Yeah.
Let's keep looking at it. Let's see what we can do.
Okay, well, I'm not sure that we have the resources to pursue that because, again, I mean, no offense, but we're limited on the resources we have. We're all personally financing it at this point, and so I don't really think there's a necessity for us to pursue this unless we had some sort of consensus from you that says, hey, we're really interested, we're willing to work out something pending final details. That I can understand. That would make it worth our time to do this.
I think you definitely have a general consensus that everyone on the board is open to it and open to considering giving you the, I guess, I don't know if variance is the right word, but kind of changing our policies to annex you in. I think what you're hearing from at least a couple of us is we're not going to say tonight, yes, for sure, we will do that.
I understand that, but again, again, I hope you can understand from our perspective that it's a path we'd have to go down that would cost us money at some point that is just, we don't want it to be wasted money.
Right.
Absolutely, but I just feel if it meets our sewer wastewater treatment and
Your operator is our operator, so that's really not an issue.
Yeah.
so,
I mean, that's good information. That's the kind of thing we'd want to hear from our staff before we.
so I think what everybody's saying is we would welcome the application. We can't make a decision right now because we don't have the facts in front of us, but it looks like everybody's on board with, let's find a way to make it happen.
Okay, I guess one other question is Lock Buoy, other than policies, is Lock Buoy able or willing to help contribute to making this happen?
I don't know that that's something we can, that's definitely something you have to talk to staff about.
Okay,
Can't commit till we see what we have to contribute.
okay.
I mean, if you want us to pay 99% of the costs, obviously not. But, you know, if it's something reasonable that everybody, I've been a businessman all my life.
Right.
If you walk away from a deal and nobody's happy, it was a good deal for both people, okay? So you understand what I'm saying? If you make a deal and you both walk away and nobody's happy.
I get that, and a year and a half ago, this would have been a different conversation. Again, we've already spent the money,
I
have
understand.
our approvals, so at this point, it really has to be worth changing direction.
Coming in and talking to us, so.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity.
So one thing that kind of interests me a little bit that I think would, from my standpoint, would be a good discussion to have about contributions to, I guess the way that I would see it, to your guys' sewer and water system out there. I think at least right now, what I would like to see is something a little bit more than annexation from you guys from the town. And where I'm thinking with that is if there's already a sewer plant essentially that's on the other side of I-76 that the town of Lock Buoy has put, I don't know, I'm gonna throw a number out there, let's say 50%. I would like to have an agreement with you guys then that if we start building houses on that side of, you know, the interstate, that we have some ability to tap into your guys' system or something like that. So I think it should be more than the town of Lock Buoy providing assistance and money, financial support for that system. I think the town as a whole would need to get, you know, some assurance from you guys that we could help utilize that system as well. So, and I'm not saying that's what we have to do, but I think that's something that we should, you know, consider and see what we can really work out to make sure that it is beneficial for you guys, but it also needs to be beneficial to the town and the taxpayers.
Understand, so let me clarify, I guess. We're not necessarily looking for a financial contribution to our water or wastewater system. Those are pretty much covered at this point. Now, the problem with what you're asking is we had to design our systems based on our usage, and so we really don't have capacity at this point to take on additional taps or residences or whatnot. You know, that could be explored and it could be pursued in the future. But at this point, that's not really the avenue we're looking for or need help with.
I understand you're not looking for that, but you're involved with this. Is it upgradable?
Everything's upgradable.
Okay.
Yeah.
For a reasonable price.
Well, reasonable is,
Well, you know, a government reasonable price, not a private reasonable.
But here's my point, guys. I think now we're starting to dive
Into
into
the-
staff level
yeah,
discussions. and
particular.
Let's let the staff decide. I think everybody's on board with being interested.
Okay,
Have a conversation with Steve and maybe a meeting from there.
okay, we'll pursue something, Steve.
Thank you.
very much.
I appreciate you being
Whoa,
here.
whoa, whoa.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have one question. Mr. Stamey asked about some visuals that we can look at in a little bit more detail. Is that possible without a lot of,
We have all that.
okay. I would like that myself because I'm not familiar with the project.
Thank you. And I'm sorry I put you at the end of the agenda. I totally spaced that he told me you were here, so.
All right, thanks again.
Okay. Next up is staff comments. Chief McQuaid.
Since we didn't have our meeting last month. So I don't know if you have any specific questions. We did get our police car was delivered to us here last week, so we have our new police car. We've had some interesting staff issues going on, right? Because we had Officer Hernandez resign, and then so we hired Sean Johnson, who swore in tonight, and Lawley, who replaced Makar Palissa when he left. And then we have a person coming on board next year for the new one that we added at the beginning of the year here. And I've already made an offer for that, and it's to Eric Hernandez, who is reconsidered, who came back to me asking if he said he kind of moved too quickly to resign and would like to come back. So as a young man, I went through something similar to that myself, and so I am going to give him a chance because he was here working with us for several years, and he's been great for us. So now if he decides that he wants to leave again and come back a month later, I don't think I'll have the same reaction to him. But I think we're in pretty good shape now. So to bring him back, so it was kind of a pleasant surprise when he came back. Since he's a good guy. He's a good guy. So that'll work out pretty good. We had our little shooting incident that involved people that nobody lives here. They were all just here at a party. So we did make an arrest. There may be more arrests coming on that in the future. It's still under investigation, but we did make an arrest that same night. So outside of that, I don't really have, did have a meeting, second meeting that I've been to today. Today was the second one regarding a stoplight situation out at the Highway 52 and County Road 59 in front of the school district, or in front of the middle school. CDOT was there today along with Weld County and their planners and trying to come up with a partnership between Hudson, Lochbuie, and the school district to come up with some funds maybe to put a stoplight out there since they feel like it's a pretty dangerous intersection. It was an interesting meeting. It sounds like maybe we meet some warrants for the state, maybe not. I don't know. It's kind of difficult with CDOT sometimes to get them moving. But I know that that whole project is going to rely on a partnership between all of those communities to pay for it, because I'm certain that CDOT's not going to front any money for it. So just to plant that seed all in your heads. So.
Have they suggested looking at DOLA funds for that?
I really don't know who's going to be the lead agency in it, whether it's going to be Keensburg, since it's in the town. I think three corners of it are at least in the town of Keensburg. And then, or the school district. The school district superintendent was there, and he's not opposed to taking a lead role in it either. So I don't know we're really kind of on the fringes of this thing. It's really not a Lockbuoy issue as far as the town government, but it might be a Lockbuoy issue as far as it's all of our kids that are dealing with that intersection, right? So I think that that's the collaboration, and that brings us into it. I've been in those meetings representing the town there, but also the police department, since Keensburg is within our jurisdiction, and the SRO is also. So that's why my involvement was there. So just something that you might be on the table here in the future.
Mayor Lofgren, what kind of funds did you mention?
Department of Local Affairs.
Yeah, I know they were talking to the state today about CDOT money, about, if they would have any money.
Right.
They didn't say no, but they didn't say that there would be much available. I can't imagine that intersection is anywhere on anybody's priority list in CDOT. I mean, it just wouldn't rise to that occasion. So I don't know if anybody has any other questions or anything.
I do. What's the status on the code enforcement officer now?
What about him?
Is my understanding that he's going to be a full-time employee?
He has been a full-time employee for, 2 years?
Current code enforcement officer?
Yeah. Our current code enforcement officer has been the code enforcement officer for six months, something like that, 6-8 months.
Is that a full-time position?
It is.
Is that a uniform position?
It is. So he wears a different kind of uniform. It's a bright green shirt, green and black shirt. You may have seen him. Drives around our little pickup truck, little Ford pickup truck.
I've seen the truck, I haven't seen him, but that's okay.
Yeah, and so Eric Hernandez, who is also an officer, was a code enforcement officer before. It's been a full-time, 2 years now? We've had a full-time code enforcement officer uniformed.
Trustee Strack?
Names were going around. Is Zachary Johnson still around?
Yeah, he's here.
Can you share any more information about the ongoing investigation into the missing person case?
I can share whatever. I just don't have anything to give you. It's kind of hit the news again. The family is kind of getting the news they're trying to get more, awareness, I think, which is what I would do if I was them too. And we just don't really have any more leads, any new information. I can kind of only take it where it takes us. So it's baffling and it doesn't make sense. And outside the family, I'm sure that the investigators that have been working this are they want to figure out what's going on because they're personally invested in it too.
Are we full staff then come the first of the year?
Yeah, as soon as we hire Eric, yeah. Now we've currently got 2 of them in training, and then Eric will be in training again. So they should all be done February-ish.
Nice. And then was the shooting arrest a juvenile, or can you comment on that?
The victim was a 19-year-old male. The arrestee was a 15-year-old male. Yeah, the suspect. Over a girl, I think.
And, go ahead.
Out of curiosity, how do we handle investigations like that? I mean, because we don't really have a detective on our staff, right? So when we get something like that, I would imagine it's a lot of time that would take away. So how do we handle those type of things that come up?
Over time.
So we are the ones kind of driving that. We haven't got.
So like the shooting, is that what you're talking about? Or,
the missing persons.
So, yeah, so the missing persons, we involved as soon as we got to the point where that person, we knew that they were not coming home probably, which, took a couple of days to figure out that's, she's an adult. She still could potentially, that's part of it. She still could potentially be wherever she is on her own, doing her thing. But as soon as it went past the point where we knew that was involved, we contacted search and rescue agencies. Weld County helps us out. We called CBI, who brings in investigators. All of those services are available to us. But yeah, we lead it, and we're the ones that continue to try to follow the leads and to develop the leads, and it is very time consuming. It calms down after a minute. It's real hot for a while, and then it calms down. And the same thing with like the shooting incident. That's that's a really fluid situation when that happens. It's a very active, fluid situation when you respond to that. So we're getting help from outside agencies to come in and secure the scene and do the things that we need to do. We're calling in officers that are off duty to come help us set perimeters, help collect evidence, do the interviews. In that case, we had 20, 30 juveniles that we had to interview that were all at this party. It happened outside, and all the kids were inside except a few of them, but we interviewed everybody to try to figure out, you know, what led up to this. So you had a lot of officers involved in that. But yeah, you have a primary lead person, and they're the ones that get to run with that thing, and they end up, a lot of times they get to work maybe sometimes 24, you know, more than 24 hours at a time to try to get the initial push. So that's the way it goes sometimes.
Okay, Public Works, Mr. Beback.
Good evening. Things are going well. Just taking advantage of the fact that we're slowing down a little bit with the parks being not growing as fast. So just taking the opportunity to organize our maps, and we're kind of looking at options how to scan some of the old as-bills that we've had in that modular building, which is our office. So we'll be looking at that this winter, also looking at that paver software, which I mentioned to you last month, and also looking at a GIS or a geographical mapping system, and looking at all those things and combining them into one database. So our staff can utilize utilize it for various purposes. In addition to that, just having some sort of a good structure for documenting things as they become available with all the development, new projects coming on board, just having a way to store the stuff and just move it onto our servers. That's going to be good. Also, got an opportunity to sign us with BidNet. I'm not sure if you're familiar with BidNet or Rocky Mountain bid system. I'm familiar with it through working for the county, which Weld County is also part of this system. A lot of municipalities are moving their procurement departments onto this system. And essentially what happens, if a vendor wants to bid on a project, they need to go through this system in order to download our RFP documents. And I think it's a valuable opportunity and a valuable tool. It's at no cost to the town. It's a way for us to just upload our documents and expose it to a larger community versus advertising it through our website or through whoever we use, which I think is their website currently. Other than that, we have vacancy. Operator 2 posted, have a couple of applicants. I'm officially the oldest guy in Public Works right now. We have a millennial staff at this point. So if you have any other questions, always email me, call me, or thanks.
Comments for Public Works? Go ahead.
I had a comment that was going to make in trustee comments, but it would apply to him. On the northwest corner of Bonanza and Weld County Road 2, there's a pine tree that really impedes vision of traffic coming eastbound on 2 for if you're making a left turn off Bonanza. Now, I don't know whether that tree is going to come down when Weld County Road 2 gets approved or not. If it doesn't, I think we need to trim it back. If it's going to come down, then it's a moot point. It doesn't make any difference. But right on the northwest corner of Bonanza and 2, there's a big pine tree, that really cuts down on you really have to creep out so you can see if anybody's coming down 2. And I just think it impedes, it's a safety item. It either needs to be trimmed back, or if the tree's coming out for the improvement of County Road 2, it's a moot point anyhow. So I just thought I'd bring that to your attention.
I'll look at it.
Anything else for Public Works? How did the tumbleweed burn go?
Hot, and
Hot.
actually, I changed my mind as far as doing the burn behind the houses in the open space. I think it's too close. That pile on the north side of your house there, we're gonna have to move it. We're not gonna burn it.
Close to Mayor's house, huh?
Either that or he's gonna be out there.
To move your house.
Yeah.
The big pile, that was, I'm surprised I'm not a fireman, but it was a lot of heat. And it would probably melt your siding and your windows because it was pretty bad.
Wow. Well, fun times. Cool. Wastewater and water. Mr. Raymond.
Okay, how's everybody tonight? All right, let's see, not a lot going on, just, whenever the electricians are over at the wastewater plant, something goes down, which means we rush around and fix it and figure out with them what we need to do, but other than that, plant's running great. Still always having issues with the UV system at the wastewater plant. That's why we want to replace it. Water treatment plant, everything's going good there. We're getting the pH up in the distribution system at around 7, 8, because that's part of our, when we exceeded the copper action level last year, what part of our optimal corrosion control treatment was with the upgrade putting in the sodium hydroxide. We have seen some bad, not some bad effects, but some things we need to deal with. Some of it is the injection point where the sodium hydroxide's at is starting to coat the inside of the impeller on the booster pumps, which are reducing their efficiency and actually locked one up. So we got to find out with JVA where we could switch that, where we still get the effect. Because starting in January, it's real important that we keep our pH up above 8.2 so that we don't have any, we won't have any corrosion issues that we got to deal with. Other than that, Sam will give you the update on the construction, but Mulch has been pretty good to work with out there. As things do come up, they take care of it right away for us. Hopefully, we've got maybe 2 more times where we'll have Veris come in and de-water for us, and then we'll be finished. And then we'll start doing our own. That'll be exciting. I know Steve did give me some questions that came up at the last board meeting. I think Trustee Strzok and Trustee Doherty had some questions. I think yours was about the skate upgrades. The SCADA that's there is how you would say OEM, original equipment when the plant was built. And in fact, you can't, the software that's on there, you can't even purchase, you can't get up support or anything. So I understand, budgeting to where, you don't make these big expenses, but generally, they do occur. I mean, it is one of those things where, like at the water plant, when we went under construction, they no longer support some of the PLCs that were in there. So we switched to different PLCs, which then required different SCADA software. So it's kind of like a computer. As stuff changes, you need to upgrade software. Why this one is just a smidging more is that it will be identical to the one at the water plant. So when somebody's at the water plant, they'll be able to log in to the wastewater plant and vice versa. If something goes on at the water plant and everybody's out at the wastewater plant, they'll be able to log on as a virtual machine. So they'll be able to start pumps, stop them, do anything that they can from one to the other, which also, when it relates to late night emergencies, being able to go to one computer to see both systems instead of going to 2 different computers will also speed up responses, which can mean all the difference in the world in a large expenditure if something breaks. So as much as we'd like to, I mean, we do have some systems where we actually lease virtual machines where there's a server at an off-site location, but those are very, very expensive. Those run on like $1,700 a month just to have that. Now, the good news about that is that if something goes wrong, they're out there fixing it. If something really goes wrong, like the programming, you get lost, well, they can run that strictly from that offsite server, which has some huge benefits. But usually those are really large facilities where we have those. And, our response time is so quick that I didn't think that would be something that we'd want to entertain. But unfortunately, it is a large expense, but the good news is that we won't have to make more large expenses like that, and we have redundancy. So it's almost like having two machines, really. I hope that answers your question. Maybe not be what the answer you want to hear, but
So, I guess really my question, so I think I remember when we purchased the one for the water, I think it was what, 3-ish years ago. I remember the same-ish cost. And I guess my question, so you talked that the one at wastewater has been out of date, and so we can't get replacements and things like that. And so I guess my question was, is there like a maintenance program with this software that we're able to maintain, and now, you know, we have kind of a recurring cost that next year, you know, to, I don't know, upgrade to the new version and the new tools is $2,000 every year versus, you know, we're waiting until, you know, 5 years and this one's out, it's just so far out of date that we're having to drop another $40,000.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really, I think it's more of, is there a way that we can have, is there a maintenance program option with this type of software that, you know, we can kind of keep it up to date into the future? And that way we don't run into the same issue that we're running into now, where we're having to shell out this type of expense. Because I see the benefits, like you said, with having the same program, and I absolutely get all that. I think it's just more, is there a way that we can spread this cost over time and also get better software next year when they make an improvement?
yeah. To answer that question, even though we're replacing that, you will still have that $2,000 a year maintenance package that you'll have to pay for the base software, just like we have to for the water plant. So moving forward, yeah, we will be able to have those updates that will be supplied. And it's not just the updates, it's also the technical support. Once something doesn't work, that you can call in and you're not charged $150 an hour by some millennial that Dave was talking about.
Screw those guys.
Right? So that's the other part about doing that. But yes, we will still have to have that so that we stay up on top of it. Why that wasn't kept up on it, it was that way when we came here in 2011. It was already outdated. It wasn't something that we felt that was a need to change, and that there would be an opportunity through an upgrade at the treatment plant that we knew sooner or later would happen, that we would just take this on and do it at that same time. So it was kind of a deferred type of expenditure, and sometimes those can hurt you, right? I mean, I recognize that you don't not spend money to make sure something bad doesn't happen, right? And then I think Trustee Strauch was about Brighting using up our capacity. And safe to say they aren't. I think we're really tracking about what we were when we first started here. In other words, out of the amount of flow that's there, about 65% of it is theirs. Okay, when you look at it, like if you look at it month to month, it's always like this, right? I mean, and a lot of it depends on, you know, that's retail, commercial, how much travelers are going down 76, stopping off at McDonald's, stopping off at the stores and shopping, or whether it's wintertime type of shopping. So it's always a little give and take, but they're not using it up any faster than we are. The good news is that we're really only at 50% capacity of the treatment plant itself. And keep in mind, there's two kinds of capacities. You have the amount of water that flows through it, but then you also have the strength of the wastewater. And that's referred to as BOD, biochemical oxygen demand. And we're at like 51, 52 both sides, which is, I don't know, I guess it's kind of good that the guys that, you know, designed it years ago kind of pinpointed what they thought the BOD would be around here. And it's not always, they don't really always hit that, Larry. I'll tell you, I've got some systems where the flow is at 50%, but the organic is at like 90 because they didn't hit that number right. But also know that we've got it in the 5-year CIP to do a master plan and a rate study in 2020. And then there's money in 2022, 2023 to expand it. And also that'll be about the time we're going to get regulatory changes that are going to make our discharge more stringent that we'll address at that time as well.
Thank you. So when I looked at our water master plan, you know, it just didn't really show anything on the other side of the street.
Yeah.
And so I was kind of worried about their sewer, maybe even Lockwood or Bowie Station, even their water supply, you know, we haven't really looked at that, but, as you say, you're watching it and it's under control, and, you know, I appreciate what you've done for us in this town for the past 5, 6, 7 years.
Thank you.
And what you've done for the water treatment and wastewater plant and taking care of it as if it was your own. I would also ask you, what's the TSS?
Total suspended solids. That's the measurement of how much solids, you know, which could be poo or suspended in the water. So way you test it is you put a filter in a flask, you run a volume of water through it, and then you dry it in the oven, and that tells you how much TSS you have.
Why I ask is in 2017, it was 6 milligrams.
Yeah.
And now it's 26, so.
Well, I mean, the limit's 30, and that's a one-time test for the month, right? I mean, that's not like if we had to do it weekly. We don't want to spend your money on lab analysis if we don't have to. We kind of look at it, that was really what that happened was when we got a big shove through the treatment plant, because when the electricians were over messing around in the headworks, they actually cut one of the pumps off, right? So then we get a high level alarm on the day that we take samples. So it shoved a bunch of water through the treatment plant, so it kind of washed some out. If you looked at it any other day, it would be still 6. But it was just a day that we happened to sample. And it was like, well, there's no reason to sample because we're within our limitations and it doesn't really hurt us, right? So it's like, we didn't want to spend any more money.
I shouldn't lose any sleep over the TSS.
Oh, no. It doesn't do it. Well, in fact, if water is extremely pure, it will kill fish. Keep in mind that. It will. I mean, we actually have work on facilities where the reverse osmosis, like it's over at your water plant, is the last step in the wastewater process. Then we have to reconstitute it before we can discharge it. Otherwise, it will actually cause harm to the environment. Sounds odd, but even the little building block guys got to have their part of the water. If I got any more questions, I know with 2 new people, if you want to have a tour of both facilities, of recognizing that the wastewater plant's under construction, you know, anytime you want to go, you just call me. I'll be happy to take you on a personal tour.
Thank you.
Just so you know what you're getting into.
It's just,
And
you know, to say you're walking into it.
we will provide you with proper PPE. Thank you.
Thank you. Sam, and before you do your report, this is your last meeting with us, I hear. So we did just want to thank you for the 1.5 years of service you've given us, everything you've done to bring the library services to town, which we will hopefully see in the future, but you've laid the groundwork for everything you've done with the water and wastewater plants over your 1.5 years, and everything you did with economic development through Buxton and with Miss Press. I don't think your accomplishments can be underestimated. In 18 months, you did a lot for us, and you helped Steve immensely. So if everyone could give Sam a round of applause. Now you can give us your last report.
Thank you. Well, I was going to end with my thanks to everyone here, so I'll just start and repay the same compliments. Just thank you all for your support, and over the last, it's actually been 2 years. I can't believe it's been that long. But it's been great hanging out here and learning from you guys. And I would definitely, if you're new on the board, take up weighing on that offer, because the water treatment plant and the wastewater treatment plant are very interesting places to be. But it's been a great educational experience for me. So thank you all for letting me be a part of it and approving the grant a couple of years ago so you all could take me on. That being said, I don't really have anything that profound to talk about this evening. I had hoped, again, like last time, to have an update on the Conroe 2 water main. Unfortunately, that's kind of tangled up in some administrative stuff with FICO right now. So hopefully they'll be ironing out those details shortly. Steve had sent an email today, but we hadn't gotten a response on anything. And then a wastewater treatment plant, like Wayne said, everything is kind of just moving along. We've been really fortunate to have great weather so far, knock on wood. So I haven't had to deal with any winterizing of concrete. But the one thing that I will throw out there about the wastewater treatment plant is that we're looking at about a little bit of a delay on completion right now. It's probably going to be about a month later, bringing the completion date to about August. We don't have details on that exactly. I think that Moltz is looking at specifics, and so they should have an update on that for David or Wayne in the next couple of weeks. But the great thing about that, the UV being approved in the budget this year for 2019, potentially Moltz could work on that, and we wouldn't have to incur as many like demob charges if they did have to power down for a little bit at the wastewater treatment plant. So that's just two quick little things, but that's all I had tonight. If anyone has any questions for me.
Questions or comments for Sam?
If you're interested in volunteering.
Yeah, and just so it's clear for our two new members, we did just finish a water plant expansion. So that's what he was talking about with the tour there, and we are in the process of the wastewater treatment expansion. So, okay, Mr. Stamey.
So we did have a work session scheduled with Safe Built with Trustee Doherty and Trustee Strock. That was canceled due to a sickness of Safe Built representative, who has now left, by the way. And he stopped through today saying he took a job as CBO with City of Arvada. Anyway, we have House Weber, who was here to talk about the codes, has offered his availability as January 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. He said around 3 o'clock. Trustee Doherty said he would prefer later in the afternoon on one of those dates. And so if Trustee Strock, would 4 o'clock work for you on one of those dates?
Whenever.
You have a preference today? Okay, so just schedule one of those dates and then I'll do a calendar for you. Not the 2nd? Okay. I didn't hear that. Okay.
First. I'm good with the first.
Okay. So just you mentioned DOLA, so I did have a meeting with Don Sandoval to talk about the board retreat and his role and what he might do. And I think is what Don is going to do is just give an update on what he sees happening with DOLA now, that the changes in administration and what directions there might be in DOLA. So and about a half hour for Don to give that kind of update. I did have a meeting with CDOT to talk about with their team. There were, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 5 people from CDOT that showed up, and we talked about the submittal of our responding to their comments and that process on the final design for the roundabout. It's kind of incredible when you federalize a project, just of just the additional paperwork that's required for that. But one thing I did learn is that, which we need to have further discussion, if we do the roundabout in concrete, it appears that CDOT would maintain that roundabout in terms of, the ongoing maintenance. If we change it and do it in asphalt, it appears that CDOT would require the town to maintain that. I know there's a cost differential, but I think we need to have that additional discussion as well. My preference would be that if we can cost-wise do it, would be to do it in concrete so we don't have the maintenance. So that's what we're working on right now. Yeah, right. But it looks like, though, by going through their process and then their bidding process, and we also need to hire a separate construction manager and then a procurement manager to process their paperwork. By the time we go through that process, we'd probably be bidding and starting construction perhaps in June. Yes, we hope.
Just thought I'd ask.
Yeah. So, I mean, there are steps we need to go through. When we finalize the design and so forth, then we need to make a request to CDOT for release of their funds, and they have to go through their process to get it into their budget. And it just, their own internal process just takes time before we can bid the project. So that has to happen from them. That's part of the time frame. I think those are the key things on my report.
Comments for Town Administrator, anyone? Go ahead, Mr. Kennedy.
What is a time frame that we're gonna look at what they're doing with the roundabout? Because I wasn't here, so I'm not familiar with that.
So we have just about a final design of the roundabout, and CDOT is funding part of that work of about $463,000. So, we're looking at the final design, kind of the landscape treatment, the median, how that, the types of requirements that they have for that. Then going through their process to bid that, it looks like we could start construction of the roundabout and the approaches to that CDOT portion of the project in June. That's kind of I probably added a month, but I think would be the time frame to look at when we could start construction on that piece. We'll actually bid two separate. We have the County Road 2 portion is already bid, and that's pending getting the final relocates of the utilities, which you've seen Ward Electric moving the United Power boxes this week. And then kind of soon the weather holds or breaks, then the contractors are ready to start the County Road 2 project, the actual ripping the road up and repairing or rebuilding. So there'll be two different projects occurring after the first of the year on County Road 2.
So have we reviewed the type of landscaping that we're gonna do on the medians that are going away from the roundabout?
Just in that first stretch, we have a basic landscape plan, minimal landscape for the median that goes to the west.
And have you discussed that? Has the board discussed that?
We have, the direction was to do a low, kind of a low maintenance, low water type of landscape.
That's what I'm concerned about. Is like, when I looked at the diagrams that they had of the trees and the shrubs and all that, I would really like for everyone to consider low maintenance and low water usage as far as when we build those medians.
Right. And that's the direction.
And we've done that?
Yes.
Okay.
I think we are going to do a County Road 2 update at the board retreat as well. Is that correct, Steve?
We can plug that into, yes, Tara.
So we'll get a little more detail then. Anything else for Steve? Okay.
Thank you.
Any other staff have comments or reports? Okay, so we will move to mayor and, we have a sex session tonight too. What? Okay, we'll move to mayor and trustee comments. Trustee Counterman. Mayor and trustee comments. Do you have any comments tonight?
No.
Trustee Morris?
Yeah, thank you. First, welcome to Trustee Counterman and Trustee Jeffrey. Welcome, you guys. Good to have you here, and I look forward to working alongside you two. Congratulations, Mr. Mayor, on assuming the mantle and being at the helm. Trustee Doherty, you might be the shortest tenured mayor pro tem in the history of pro tems, but I think you would have been an excellent one, and I value working alongside you, Trustee. I've appreciated and admired your dedication, investment in town. You were a prime mover, driving force for Road 2. I appreciate working with you. Trustee Ott, I've enjoyed working with you. I look forward to you serving as pro tem. I appreciate your investment and commitment, particularly self-improvement that you've done, specifically the trainings and the municipal league training and resources that are offered. And I think you mentioned you have 106 hours of training that you've accumulated in 4 years. And I've been here about 2 years, and I think I'm at 26 hours. So my hat's off to you for that. Thank you for your investment. A bit unusual to switch appointments like we did. I do not want us to have any sort of divisiveness. I don't want there to be sides or any ill will between us. We serve at the pleasure of the voters. I would like us to maintain and stay as a unified body, and I appreciate that all of us are interested in dedicated to what's in the best interest of the town and the people that we serve. Final comment I have is I happened to notice on the internet, the Wi-Fi thing, and I need my teenager to help me with the terminology of all this, but there looks like there's a couple of unsecured internet access things. One for the police squad room, the town hall, and adminting, and I feel like it might be important to keep those.
All unsecured?
They're not password protected.
Those are accesses for our computers to get on the TV screen.
Okay, I don't know if it's a security thing or not. I tried to log into 2 of them and I was able to, so. I don't know, I didn't go any further. And the reason, and sorry, Chief, the reason I bring this up is at one of the fire stations in the jurisdiction where I work, they had an unsecured Wi-Fi thingy, and it was changed from fire station number whatever to something extremely racially offensive, and then that generated tremendous backlash on the individuals at that location and the city and everything else because it wasn't secured. And I don't know how to do that. But I just noticed it tonight and wanted to mention that.
Trustee Strapp?
Samantha, thanks for your service. And yes, Virginia, there is a Santa Claus.
That's it? Trustee Doherty?
I have a couple of things. So if we're gonna have school districts and other municipalities come and ask the town for additional funding for road improvements and interchange improvements, I think we should potentially look to do the same. I don't think it's only Lock Bowie students that go to the schools here. So, I mean, if that's something that people want to do, then you know what? We should do it. We got 2 intersections that we're looking to improve on I-76. I think we got some intersections that we're looking to improve closer to the school. We're also working on a nice new road for buses that cost the taxpayers of the town of Lock Bowie quite a bit of money, but didn't just benefit those taxpayers. So let's definitely have these discussions. Absolutely. Let's open this up and see where we need to exchange some money. The second thing that I have is, maybe this is just me, but I don't think we've gotten really great service from SafeBelt. I think we've asked them to do meetings with us. I think they're always sick. And I'm not saying that they're not always sick, but I guess, I don't know. I think we've pushed meetings before. I don't think the meetings that we've had have been all that successful or really what the board was kind of looking for. So, I mean, I don't know. I think technically we renew our contracts every year, but I don't really know if this is one that I've seen that we renew on a yearly basis. And if it's something that we should potentially look to see who else is out there, and see if there's better services that we can get for the town of Lock Bowie. I'm not saying there is, but I think, you know, it'd probably be wise to see what else is out there. And then, I might be the only one that asks this, but can we get the New Year's of meetings sent out as calendar invites? Is this your last day, or? So if we could just get I think that's really helpful, and since we're all kind of setting it up, I think that's just a little bit easier than all of us setting it up individually. So same thing with like the retreat and so forth. And then anything else that we kind of have that gets scheduled, I'd definitely appreciate it if we can get that sent out to the whole board. I think that might be a good way to monitor though too, is, you know, if somebody might not be able to be there, they can decline, and I think that shows up as well, so it might be helpful for that. And that's all I'll have.
Trustee App?
Again, thanks for the support of the board on the mayor pro tem position. I will endeavor to do my best possible efforts to make everybody happy with what I'm doing. Couple other things. We've had a couple of Tabor deals on the ballot to keep additional revenue that is in excess of the Tabor amount we can have, and they've all failed. And I think they failed is because we as a board didn't take the time to present it to the citizens, because I had several citizens thinking they were getting $200, $300, $400 back from the Tabor refund. You know, and when I told them it'd be on their property tax or it'd be 30, 40 bucks, they went, what? You know, they thought they were getting some windfall. So I think if we're gonna do this again, I don't know how we're set up for next year for Tabor refunds, but when the fall festival comes in, I think the town, I know the town can't take a position on this, but I think if we had a booth for informational purposes at the fall festival to present some of the pros and cons of this and man it as members of the board, we can get the information out to the public and give it a better chance of passing, and Maureen can address whether we can do that legally or not. I know we can't take a position, but I think we could present information to the public.
Well, yeah, let me just clarify one point, because we are fully de-tabored, right? In that Tabor revenue, we don't refund on. This is the 5.5% statutory limit, which is, there's two forms of revenue limitation that we're worried about. We'll talk about this a little bit in our board training. But I just want to make sure we're all clear about that we've been what we call de-bruised. So Tabor is not the question what we asked. We asked the 5.5% statutory limit, which is doesn't come from the Constitution like Tabor does. It comes from state statute, and it just says that every year property tax revenue year over year can't bring in more than 5.5% of the revenue it brought in the prior year, with a whole bunch of exceptions. Anyway, so I hear you, and anytime you ask a ballot question like that, when money's on the table, there needs to be an issue committee or a committee of people out there as individuals providing information, but the town can't pay for a booth to provide that information. So I would never recommend that you do that, but if you as individuals wanted to form a little issue committee that you took care of in your off time, outside of your role as trustees, absolutely would encourage you to do that. So.
And then the last thing I had is, I had Linda print you up the CML action items. These are what's coming up in the CML policy committee, and they'll be discussed. Well, they've been discussed, and this is what they pretty much decided. If you guys, the CML is your voice in the state legislature. So if you want to read through these items and ask me any questions or say yay or nay, or I don't support this because, just give me a minute when you call me or email me to get a pencil and paper so I can write it down, and I will certainly be glad to present it to the CML committee on the 14th of February when our next meeting is. The only thing that I found rather interesting was I didn't really understand the Wayfair Act until it was explained to me. The Supreme Court ruled on internet sales on the Wayfair deal was Wayfair versus the state of South Dakota, and the big thing was it did not put an undue burden on the entity selling the product, and it was a single point of collection. Now the problem in Colorado is everybody has individual taxes. You know, you have if you're in Adams County, you have your water tax, your rain tax, your RTD tax, everything else. So they basically have to get all the entities on board to have a single point of collection for the state of Colorado to make this work. So I don't think we would have a problem doing that for the town, but that's just the thing I thought was very interesting is the Supreme Court upheld the collection of taxes on internet sales based on the fact that it did not produce two facts. It was a single point of collection, and it didn't put an undue burden on the person making the sale. So that I found rather interesting, which was explained to me. I mean, they first gave it to you with all the legalese, and I didn't understand any of it. Then they simplified it, I understood what it meant. So, but at any rate, if you please read through the action items, and if you have no comments, that's fine, but if you have something you want to add to it, feel free to call me or email me, and I will write the comments down and present them to the CML committee on the 14th of January. Okay, thank you. Oh, and thanks, Sam.
Jeffrey.
I'm learning a lot. This is very different. I mean, it's similar, but it's different. So I appreciate the opportunity to be here again and to work with all of you. I was at the first sit down regarding the Hope for a Light at the intersection of Highway 52 and County Road 59. And I believe that if we have an opportunity to partner with the other communities and put out some sort of a resolution trying to encourage CDOT and Weld County to foot the bill, I would encourage us to do so, because I see accidents at that intersection all the time. And, you know, so including accidents where people have lost their lives. And so I really think it's very important, especially as we're just gonna continue to grow in our communities. I'm not necessarily saying I think we should contribute money to it, but I think that we could, you know, be a unified front with our neighboring communities and put some pressure in places that's stronger than if it was just one community acting alone. That's all I have.
Okay, and all I had was, I would echo exactly what Trustee Jeffrey just said. And the only reason I would be opposed to giving any money is we're going to have to put 2 lights in ourselves near our school, probably in the next 5 years or so. So we're gonna have a pretty big expense coming up on that front. But I definitely would support a resolution saying, hey, CDOT or hey, county, this is a big deal, and it's important to our community as well. Some of you may have noticed the seats changed a little bit. That was my call. Basically what I did was move the most senior members closest to the mayor's table and the more junior members out, just so no one thinks that it was personal or anything like that. Were you trying to figure out why? Yeah.
I figured you knew I would be the one that would be out of order, so you put me right by her so she can keep me in line.
So that explains that. Do we have the new email account set up for Mr. Counterman and Ms. Jeffrey yet? We do? Okay, good. Just a reminder that we have board training on January 8th at 6:30 p.m. New members have to be there. Old members are encouraged to attend just for their refresher. Board retreat, 8:30 a.m. on January 12th. The retreat will actually start at 9, but there'll be breakfast served at 8:30. Please come, as I said last time, with your ideas and your goals for 2019 and 2020. I would like to have a board members only portion of that where we will just bounce some ideas in terms of what we want to see the town doing going forward with respect to just generally, with respect to the newsletter, with respect to the website. So come with a list of bullet points to talk about.
Repeat that date one more time.
The dates are 1 to 8 for the training at 6:30 p.m. and 1:12 at 8:30 a.m. for the board retreat. And they're gonna send Outlook reminders out on that too, I believe. Oh, another thing I do wanna discuss there, so bring bullets on this as well, is ideas for running our meetings. For the past 2 meetings, I've kind of stuck to the way Mayor Mahoney did it, just because that's the way it's been done. But I would like to kind of discuss if that's how we want to continue to run our meetings, or if we want to use some different formula or some hybrid formula. But I don't want to make that call on my own, so I would like to have some input from you guys at the board retreat before we make those changes. Oh, and then Mr. Ron sent out the thing about sidewalk responsibility. I did just want to get a consensus from the board whether we want to talk about changing that policy or not. Not whether you agreed to change it, but whether you want to talk about it. Is there anyone who doesn't want to even put it on the agenda? So we will put that on an agenda in January probably, to at least discuss. The other things that we're going to talk about at the retreat, obviously there'll be a staff update. There's going to be an update on County Road 2. And the other thing is Trustee Ott's baby home rule. We're going to talk about the process for doing that and whether we still are planning to proceed forward with that in November and what we need to do to get ready for that. And the last thing I wanted to note is, and it'll probably be something in our newsletter in January, when I was in DC in November, I had an opportunity to meet with Senator Gardner and Representative Buck. So I kind of put a worm in their ear about some of our road projects and infrastructure needs. And, you know, they might have been blowing a little smoke, but they said, oh yeah, sure, reach out and maybe we can do something for you. So I thought it was at least good to make the contact and get our name out there, so. And that's all I had, so I will entertain a motion to go into executive session. Yes?
Which is now a good month from now. I'm quite happy to put an executive session on that agenda and deal with
Have a motion to,
Move the executive session to the 15th when the fire chief is here.
all in favor? Aye. All opposed? So we will move that to January 15th.
Point of information,
Yeah, go ahead.
will it be before his presentation or after?
It's my understanding that he's gonna come in and make his formal request of the board that we would post an act, these that you won't be required to take, should take any action that night. So we can do it before or after, or meeting for the agenda.
I'd
I'd like to hear what he has to say first, before we do the executive session.
anyone else opposed to that? Yeah, so we'll do the executive session after his presentation. Okay, with that, do I have
Move to adjourn.
second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We are adjourned at 8:45.